I am so honored to have this opportunity to interview my former boss, Coralie Matayoshi. She
Colleen.
recently she recently won the Career Achievement Honoree for Women Who Mean Business, and I've had multiple opportunities to witness that. Former Narcissus Queen, trial attorney, judge, ran the Hawaii State Bar, CEO of American Red Cross, Pacific Island region, and now still doing it all. Your law podcast, right, for KHON.
Right, it's called What's
So,
the Law?
how do you manage? Oh, and a new grandmother.
Uh-huh.
So, any tips for parents, especially moms who are, we were just talking about it, they're virtually working at home while taking care of their children and running the household?
hmm
What can we
Wow.
do to just de stress?
I don't know how people are doing it right now, but I came from the days when there was no Costco, so
Yes.
Costco really does help. But I just, just preparing meals and things in bulk really, really helped me. And when I had, I had a 1-year-old, and then I was pregnant, and I was with a law firm. I used to take vacation time to cook and clean. That was my vacation. And
Wow.
actually, I had Ron. He's a great husband, and but still, it really pays to be organized. So one of the biggest tips that I have is don't don't cook something that you can't freeze today. Don't cook tomorrow what you can freeze today. I just the only pots in my house that I have are big, and
So you can cook in bulk?
yes, because if you're going to take the meat and the vegetables and the chopping board and everything out once, I mean, why not do it just once, right? I
Yes.
mean, even freezing, I get garlic, and I get this
I've done
whole
that.
big thing that's already peeled, and I put it in the food processor, and then I freeze it in Ziplocs, and then you can cut what you need. And like even hamburger, I never buy 1 pound of hamburger. I buy like 6 pounds of hamburger, and I throw it in the pot, and I stir it up, and I put it in portions. So the worst thing to do is to just put a big piece of meat in the freezer, because how are you ever going to defrost it in time,
Exactly.
right? So I really always thought it was important because when I was growing up, we ate meals every day together, and we were able to do that even though I worked full time in a demanding position like being a lawyer with billable hours every 6 minutes, or CEO of different organizations, and my husband always worked full time as well. But being organized really, really helped, and so that's one thing that you can do. Um,
So did you schedule dinner time then? You knew at a set time, like you said, scheduling is important.
yeah, and with 3 kids, with doing soccer and ballet and piano and all of that kind of stuff, we had this master calendar, and I wasn't so great as to color code it, although I tried at one time, and I failed. But everything was on a giant calendar on the refrigerator, and if it wasn't on the calendar, it didn't exist. That's how I was able to communicate, and everybody was on the same page. So when they get home from school and you go through their backpack and it says there's an excursion on Friday, that gets put on the calendar, as well as do they have to wear their school t-shirt? Do they need home lunch? Do they need to wear shoes? All that stuff goes on the calendar, so that piece of paper that's all over the place, there's 3 kids, that can get thrown away actually.
I've
And
heard, yeah, students who forget to have their permission slip
oh
signed and then they
yeah,
can't go to the field trip, right?
right, right. And with 3 kids, you need to be on top of it. So the master calendar was really important. And we always had that. And each of the kids had their backpacks, but we would put it in a laundry, in a laundry basket. So each person had a basket that had their backpack in, so that you could also throw in things, like their jacket if they needed it or something like that. So
That's
everybody had like
smart.
yeah, yeah. And all of the lunch money or whatever, they were responsible for putting that in. But you got to check the backpack right as soon as they get home, and then get their homework out, make sure that they do it. And, you know, with different sports and things, it was hard to have dinner at the same time, especially with my youngest one was a real big athlete. But what we did was my husband picked her up. I was cooking dinner. The other kids were doing their homework. And then when she came home, dinner was on the table. And I could
Wow.
always have it within 30 minutes, even though I just came home. Because you can do stuff like freeze rice or
Mhm.
freeze just whole meals. Like I have trays of lasagna that's all cut up in portions that all you have to do is zap in the microwave. Thank goodness for microwave, because
Wow.
when I started, there wasn't even microwave. That's
That's
how
right.
old I am. So, you know, just tips like that. Cooking is in bulk, never by itself. And also, if you buy a freezer and use it, because then you'll never have to eat leftovers. I mean, you can cook big pots of stuff, and then you're going to get sick of it, right?
Right, right.
If you put it in portions, then you can have a variety, and you'll never have to eat leftovers. And I just feel like home cooked meals are so important, and eating
Hmm.
together is so important. That's the one thing that you can do to bond and talk about your day and all of that.
How did you manage to give like each child like quality time? Because balancing three.
Right, right. You know, we were both able to do it together. So we all were together for dinner. And then if each of them had to have homework help, then my
Hmm.
husband and I would split up or whatever. And then, you know, what I did is every night, I mean, when they were young, of course, we used to read bedtime stories to them. And
Hmm.
I'd go from room to room to room. And I'd actually lie on the bed with them and talk to them and tell
Yes.
them stories or just talk. And then, okay, next, go to the next thing. And you know, I became really, really close to my kids. We could talk about anything. And I never really had any trouble with them. It
Wow.
was
Well, I
not
think that
hard.
emotional connection, since you
Yeah.
provided that time, right, it probably made a
Uh-huh.
huge difference.
Yeah.
So,
Even though
any
you could be
suggestions? I
tired.
mean, I know that you don't have the distance learning, but any suggestions with these for these moms who are at home right now 24/7? If they do have multiple kids, what
Yeah.
do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think that you have to divide and conquer. So
Yes.
men, the husbands, we have the same jobs as them, and so women shouldn't be the one that automatically has to not only help with the homework but cook and clean and everything else. So that's the first thing, is that men in society need to be expected to not only be helpers. I mean, I don't even like that word, like, you're helping me, why don't I help you? I'd rather just be a helper, you know.
Exactly. So like a collaborative effort.
Yeah, but it's still, and that's why we're not equal at the workplace either. It's because we tend to feel guilty that the house is messy, or that, you know, the kid couldn't go on the field trip because I forgot to put the money in or do the permission slip. Well, what about your husband? He could have done that too, right? So
Yes,
it
the
has
mom
to be
guilt. When I
mutual.
talk to mothers, for some reason we harbor their guilt and we don't
Yes,
even think that, oh, that's
right,
right. Their dad could also have remembered, but we just automatically take the
right.
blame.
Right. And so I think society expects that. And it's so easy to be a failed mother, because if your kid goes to school and doesn't have lunch because you forgot to put in the lunch money, they think, what's wrong with this mother? They don't think,
Exactly.
what,
You're not wearing the t-shirt for the yeah, for the field trip. It's your mom.
yeah, it's your mom, not your dad, right? And then men, it's so easy to be a good dad because they can just coach soccer twice a week, or take out the garbage every week, or mow the lawn once a month. You know, it's just easier, and it's society that's expecting this. And I've been talking about this for 30 years. I wrote a chapter in the book Price of Paradise many, many decades ago, and it hasn't changed that much. Although I feel like men these days do want to be more or equal partners.
Hmm.
It's just that the statistics don't bear that out as far as the amount of housework and childcare. It's still not equal.
So do you see your son being a new dad? Do you see how, that must be a really fun and interesting role
Yeah,
to see him in?
yeah, and you know what is interesting is that he was my great experiment for this whole equality thing. So he is a great dad, and he cooks and cleans and knows how to do all of that stuff. So the trick is to incorporate your kids into doing the laundry and making it fun. And a lot of times it's not,
It's not fun.
you have to redo it afterwards. But if you expose them to it, then they'll feel like it's part of their responsibility, and they'll have fun, and they'll learn how to do it. So all my kids still call me from the grocery market and say, what was that recipe? Or do you really have to do this? It's really fun because they all know how to cook and they all know how to bake. Even my son,
Wow.
who is an attorney and in the House of Representatives, he baked banana bread for some of his constituents. And he was
Wow.
with all the other secretaries at his law firm trying to do a baking contest. And he said, Mom, I didn't win. I said, yeah, because you were ironing your shirt and cooking dinner and at the same time. But you know what? He has no barriers. He doesn't think that that cooking should be, that his wife should do it. They're equal. So I feel like if we all raise our kids that way, then when they become bosses and they become husbands and things, then they'll treat their spouses and their employees as equals. And that's the only way society is going to progress to the point where women are equal at work, and if they are equal at home.
Well, I think that's why you were such a great boss, because as you know, our coworkers or my coworkers had kids, you were able to remember, like Paulette worked from 6 a.m. till 2, and
Yeah.
such flexibility. I wasn't a mother back then, but just knowing, and we always thought, what if we had a male boss? Would they be as flexible and let us come in at 6 a.m. or leave early to attend a field trip? But I think if you have a boss who's a mother, but you're right. I think if we educate younger, when they're younger, and then it becomes, oh, this is the way it is. Otherwise,
I don't have to think about equality and everything. It just is. So I think we are coming along, but it's still not equal. And with this COVID, it's you're right. It's the woman, it's the mother that kind of has to step back and go part-time or whatever, because how could you possibly do your full-time job remotely and be doing distance learning with your children? It's just impossible. So I just think that we need more accommodations here. I don't know what it is, but more paid leave or something like that. Because otherwise, our kids are the ones that are going to suffer, and that is society, and that they're not going to be able to ever catch up with the learning.
Well, I know some companies, my husband works for Spectrum, and they do have paid COVID leave. So, but, I think a lot of companies, I wonder how many of them think about how difficult it is, especially for women. They feel that they have to sacrifice their jobs during this whole pandemic because their husbands, they're not going to go part-time,
Right.
So then yeah.
Yeah. And sorry. And the other thing is the stigma. Like if your husband went part-time instead of you, people would say, what? She must make more money, and who cares? It's whoever can do it, and it should be shared. There's a stigma against taking paternity leave, right? The male, and in Switzerland, you're like, you can do 2 years or 1 year or whatever, and they want it because it's better for society that the father takes equal responsibility and bond and do all of that stuff together. And I think we need to get there better, because it's totally not like that. It's like you're a wuss or something if you're taking paternity leave.
Right.
That's really bad.
Didn't you have a story you shared when, was it Scotty or one of your kids, they were just really, really little, and you brought them to court, or you brought them as exhibit A, or remember?
That's right. I can't remember. That was a long time ago when I was a young lawyer.
And how old was your baby?
I think it either was Kelly or Alana, but a baby, and thank goodness because she slept the whole time. I wheeled her into the Supreme Court, and I was talking to the young lawyers that were just being sworn in, and I was president of the Young Lawyers Division of the Hawaii State Bar Association. So I wheeled her in, hoping I had a backup in case she started crying and got up. Somebody was going to wheel her away. But I talked about how important it was to be able to be a mother as well as a good attorney. And she was Exhibit A. And she turned out great.
Wow.
Yeah.
So any last tips on, I think most moms feel the lack of having time for self-care.
Right. I think that's what I was just going to say. Get your kids to bed early. I don't know how some people let their kids run around at midnight. No, otherwise you won't have any, So you kind of have to bite the bullet and make sure that bedtime is bedtime. And in the old days, it was 7 o'clock, when they were little. And because kids really do need a lot. They need like 10 hours of sleep or something like that. And so it's a disservice to allow them to be running around at midnight. So if you can get them to sleep and it's a habit, then you will have time to get ready for the next day, all of their things. And also you'll have time to watch the news and to talk to your husband and do all of the things for yourself. I like to cook. And so taking off of the law firm, my vacation time to cook and bake, I was okay with that because I like to do that. And I would put the classical music on while I was cooking spaghetti and things, and it would relax me. And it would be so hard if you had to do that with a kid.
With kids running around.
Crying or fighting, they're always fighting. Right? That was kind of my downtime. I used my vacation time to do that. And for me, it was good. For others who don't like to do that, then, splurge, get somebody to clean your house or something if you can, but you need some time because if you're all, trying to be in a tizzy, then it's not good for anybody. And the other thing is people think that they can do it all and have it all, and you actually can, but maybe not all at the same time. So
right.
I would never have devoted so many hours of time to being a regent of the University of Hawaii. That was so much work. People don't realize how much work. It was a 5-year commitment. I would never have done that volunteer work if the kids were young. So every stage of your life, you can do certain things. And in the beginning, your kids need you. And so that was the most important thing. But career was also important to me. And so I'm so lucky that I have a great husband that helped me so much along the way. Although I'd rather have had him in charge than help. Because it's always in your mind. Like I had the list to buy toilet paper and birthday gifts and stuff. He didn't have any of that in his head because they're not expected to. And
just coordinating birthday parties, right? I mean, I remember we were just talking about the invitation, the sleepovers, making sure they had the goodie bags and the birthday cake and
yeah. And I would make every birthday cake was homemade too, and every Halloween costume was homemade. And
wow,
I'm a little bit of a super achiever like that, but it's because I like to sew and create, and I like to do their cakes. It was special to me. Not everybody's like that, so you should do what you love to do, and that's.
When did you find time to sew Halloween costumes? When you were running the bar and doing all of that, was it after they went to bed or?
Yeah. And when I was at HICL, it was the Hawaii Institute for Continuing Legal Education where we put on seminars for lawyers and judges and the general public. I would bake a little cake for everybody that was a speaker. And
wow.
Up to midnight baking like dozens of cakes and hand delivering it. And people said, why did you do that? That's like just crazy. But it's because time is the most precious commodity, right? And when you give your time to doing something like that when you don't have time, it means you really appreciate that
Right. I
person.
remember your chocolate, what
Yes,
was it? It was a
chocolate
special chocolate
covered.
cake that you made for
I'm still
birthdays.
making them. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just think that, but that's because I like doing those things. It made me crazy, but I felt so good that I was able to thank people with my own homemade cake, and they really, really appreciated that. And so it made me feel good that they gave their time, and then I gave my time back to them.
Wow. So you want to close with sharing about the KHON legal podcast?
Yeah. So, I feel like I came full circle. I practiced law for 5 years. I was a judge and all that stuff in it. And I went and fixed all kinds of nonprofits that were failing. And then, so when I retired, just in the beginning of this year, I started to do legal podcasts. And it was to teach people about the law, because so many people don't know the first thing to do about bankruptcy or getting into a car accident, or how do you pass your house down to your kids? What is bankruptcy? All of these things. And so I wanted it to be in an understandable thing. And so it's on KHON2.com. It's on their website. And if you go on there under the news, and there's a pull down, it's called What's the Law? And we post every Monday, and you can learn about all kinds of different areas of the law. And it's also on there forever on the website. So you can look it up. You can just Google and say bankruptcy, what's the law? And because no one lawyer knows about everything from antitrust to immigration, right? So I pick the lawyers that know about those areas, and then I talk to them. I just chat with them, and I try to make it understandable, because lawyers tend to use a lot of legalese. So then I catch them and say, no, that's the Hawaii revised statutes, right, or whatever. And just to make it understandable, because I know that people really, the law is a gift if you know how to use it. And so I'm really, really enjoying it, to learn all
That's
of the
great. It
things that
sounds like what, remember Ask a Lawyer way
Yes.
back when?
Yes, that's true. And the action line, I was on the Channel 2 action line board a long time ago, and we were the ones that made up Ask a Lawyer, which still exists today on Channel 2. So I feel like
Wow.
I've come full circle. It's just right for me. I'm retired, but I'm doing something that I love. So I really am fortunate.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Coralie. I think you've answered so many questions that parents have, especially the laundry basket thing. I mean, it sounds so simplistic, but many times I hear my students, lose their backpack, or you open their backpack and it's just filled. They just haphazardly, put it in there.
Yeah, you don't want to find something that was 2 weeks old, in the bottom. So every day, check that backpack.
Well, thank you so much for your tips. It was so nice to reconnect. It's been quite a few decades.
Decades. And you still look the same.
Oh, thank you. Well, we'll have to keep in touch, and I want to thank you so much, and I will talk to you later.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Coralie. Bye.